If x is greater than y, what I want to return? I want to return x. That means x is maximum. Inside main function, if I write another function, then it's also called nested function. If the function or method returns any value, then that must be specified in the field of return type. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on methods in C#. I am Revati, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the topic which I have covered in my last session. So dear student, in my last session, I started with looping statement. So what is looping here? There is nothing but repetition. There are certain time I want to repeat same statement again and again. Instead of writing same statement again and again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to place all those statements within the looping construct. So here we discussed there are three kinds of looping construct, that is while loop, do while loop and for loop. So dear student, when I'm going to use while loop, when I don't know how many times I want to repeat this statement. So when I'm going to use while loop, when I don't know how many times I want to repeat this statement, in that situation, I'm going to use while loop. Then what about do while? In the do while loop, if the given condition is false, still I want to execute at least once. That means when I want to repeat this statement at least once, in that situation I'm going to use do while loop. Now I'm going to have for loop. So what is the need of for loop? When I know at the beginning itself that how many times I want to repeat this statement. So when I'm going to use for loop, when I know at the beginning itself that how many times I want to repeat set of statement, in that time I'm going to use for loop. So these are the three kinds of looping construct we discussed in my last session. But in my today's session, I'm going to deal with C# methods. Along with that, I'm going to deal with how to defining methods in C#. Along with that, I'm going to deal with nested methods in C# and defining nested method. So these are the certain topic I'm going to deal in my today's session. So dear student, from the examination point of view, all these topics are very, very important. That means you can able to expect any one question from these topics. Now, let's start our session with the topic C# methods. So, dear student, I hope all are familiar with the word function. So, dear student, if I consider C program, we discussed or we studied functions. That is nothing but user-defined function or built-in function. So, what is this function? I'm going to include certain statements within that function. That means a function is nothing but a group of statements used to perform desired task. Now, if I consider C++ or Java or C#, the same functions are called by the name methods. So here, if I consider C++, Java or C# programming, methods are nothing but the function. Now, what is this method? So here, method is nothing but a group of statement. So what is method here? Methods are nothing but the group of statement used to perform desired task or that together performs a task. Let me to consider the example here. Think that I want to add two numbers. For example, 2 plus 3, it is 5. After that, what I want to do? I want to print 5. I want to print 5. Now what I am going to do? I am going to place these two statements within the curly brace and I am going to give the name to this block. So what is this? It is nothing but the group of statement together performs task. So what kind of task? Adding two numbers and print the answer or print the sum. So what is method here? It is nothing but the group of statement that together performs a task. And every C# program has at least one main function. So dear student, if I consider the programming languages like C, C++, Java as well as C# programming, then we are going to have the main method. And the execution of the program is always going to start from the main method. Now, how I can able to use methods in my program? So, I want to define the method. After defining method, what I want to do? I want to call the method. So, I can able to use methods in two ways. One is define the method and call the method. So, dear student, now I am going to have defining methods in C#. Now, dear student, according to my program requirement, I can able to use methods. Now, to use methods, first what I want to do? I want to define the method. So, here, when you define a method, you basically declare the element of its structure. So, what is structure here? So, dear student, when I want to define method, then I want to follow the structure. So, dear student, to define my method, I have a structure. So, at the beginning, what I want to do? I want to write the access specifier. After that, I want to write the return type. After that, I'm going to specify the method name. Along with that, I'm going to have set of parameters. Then, I'm going to have the method body. Inside the method body, I'm going to write executable statement. And all these things together called structure or method declaration structure. Now, I'm going to have the access modifier. So, what is access modifier here? I'm going to specify who can able to access. Now, dear student, I'm going to have access specifier. So, what is access specifier? That means I can make my method to accessed by the class or within the class or outside the class, so that I can able to specify the access specifier. This determines the visibility of a variable or a method from another class. That means I'm going to restrict who can able to access the variables as well as class, and where I'm going to restrict, that is known as access specifier. Then I'm going to have the return type. So what is this return type? After executing method is responsible for returning some value. And if the function or method returns any value, then that must be specified in the field of return type. That means if the function or method returns any value, then I want to specify the return type. And example for return types are integer, float, double, etc. Now think that my function or method does not return any value. In that situation, the return type is void. Then I'm going to have method name. Now dear student, I want to give valid name to the method. For example, think that I'm going to add two numbers. Now I want to give meaningful name. And what is the name I can able to give here? That is add. So I can able to specify the name called add. So method name is a unique identifier. So what is identifier? It's nothing but the programming element. So here what is method name? It is nothing but the unique identifier, and while defining identifier, I want to follow some rules. That is same as identifier rules, and it is case sensitive. So whatever the method I'm going to specify, that is case sensitive. It cannot be same as any other identifier declared in the class. That means whatever the method name we are going to specify, that must be identical. Now I'm going to have my next field, that is parameter list. So here parameter lists are nothing but the arguments, and where I'm going to specify the parameter list, that is within the brace. Now the function may have parameters or may not be. That is purely depends on the user program. And at the end, I'm going to have method body. In my method body, I'm going to specify what operation or what calculation I want to perform. So, what are the things function body includes? That is nothing but statements as well as variable declaration. So, this contains the set of instruction needed to complete their required activity. This is the way I can able to define methods in C#. Now I'm going to have the example. So dear student, this is my example program. Now see, I'm going to specify the access modifier or access specifier. So here I specified public. Public in the sense what? This function or this method can be accessed throughout the program. Then what is int? Here int is nothing but return type. That indicates that this method is going to return some integer value. Then what is my next field? There is nothing but the method name. And what is my method name here? There is nothing but max. And I am going to have the parameter list. So here I have two parameters, x and y. Now this parameter list is optional. That means a function may have parameters or may not be. Now this is my function body, or this is my method body. So dear student, if I consider C program, then it is function. But here it is C hash programming. For that reason, it is method. So dear student, this is my method body. So I'm going to check if both the numbers are greater than or equal. So what is my function name? It is max. If x is greater than y, what I want to return? I want to return x. That means x is maximum. Else y is maximum. And these are the group of statement used to perform specific or desired task. Now I'm going to have nested methods in C hash. So what is the meaning of nested? That means inside one method, I can able to write another method. Think that I have one method and inside that I'm going to write another method. Now, dear student, if I consider C hash programming, the actual execution of the program is going to start from main function. Inside main function, if I write another function, then it's also called nested function. So, a nested method is a method. So, what is nested method? It is nothing but a method. In the sense, it includes group of statement and it is used to perform some specific task. So, a nested method is a method that is defined inside another method. A nested method is also called a local method or local function. So, dear student, the nested methods are always called by the name local method or local function. Why it is called local function? Because that is written within the function. So, the scope of the function is within the function. For that reason, it is called local function or local method. Now, C hash allows you to define as many nested methods. That means user can able to define many nested functions. So dear student, now I'm going to have an example. Now dear student, see here, this is my main method or main function, and if I write another function inside the main function, then it is called nested function. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to write or I'm going to declare a method within the main function. So this is also an example for nested methods. So what is my class name? That is program. Now I'm going to write my main function or main method. Inside the main method, I'm going to create my nested method. And above this function or above this method, I'm going to call this method. So, what I'm going to do? I'm going to call this method. And what I'm going to pass? I'm going to pass 20 and 30. And I want to write the output. Now, this is my function call. So, this is my function call, and this is my function declaration. So, this is my function or method declaration. Function or method declaration. So, what my method declaration includes, that is return type, method name and parameter list. And what I'm going to do? I'm going to find the sum of 3 variables. See here, this function can able to access only 2 variables, but Here I have my class level variable. So this is my class level variable and I can able to access this variable in my method. For that reason, it is called class level variable. Now I'm going to add x plus y plus a. So what is my x? 20 plus 30 plus 50. And I'm going to return the result. And this result is sent or assigned to int z. And when I call console dot write line, then I'm going to get the output 100. Then I'm going to get the output 100. This is the way I can able to create nested method, and this is only one way. Now see, I can able to create nested methods in another way. So dear student, here what I'm going to do, within one method, I'm going to write another method. So dear student, see, I'm going to call my nested method. See, this is my first method. Now, inside this method, once again, I'm going to call another method. And this is known as nested method. And I'm going to write the body of the method. And this method is going to return some value. And that is holded by the square. And if this method returns any value, that is managed or held by the variable z. This is the way I can able to create nested methods. So dear student, here I can able to create nested methods in two ways. One is inside the main method and another way is inside my method. That means first I am going to create one method. Inside that I am going to create another method is called nested method. Now dear student, in my today's session I started with what is method, how to declare a method and how to call a method. Now dear student, tell me how can I call method? To call the method, what I want to do, I want to specify the method name along with parameter, and if this function returns or if this method returns some value, to hold that value, I require some variable. So, what I want to do, I want to specify the data type and variable name. That means if this method returns any value that can be assigned to this variable. So, if this method returns any value that can be assigned to the variable. So, this is the way you can able to call the method. Anyway, dear student, in my next session, I am going to deal with C# method parameters, along with that default parameter value, multiple parameters, return values as well as named values. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with the more information about C# method parameters. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.